Hello and welcome everybody. In this Elden Ring build guide I want to show you a super versatile and strong Frost Samurai setup that gives you powerful ranged and melee options while also not locking you into just one or two skills and weapon choices. So my basic idea here was to center around two strong code-based abilities while also sticking to a somewhat samurai oriented theme. That's why I use the Nagakiba as my main melee weapon and the Cross Naginata or Claimant's Harpoon for ranged Ash of War. The main damage stats for this build are Dexterity and Intelligence, but we are not using any sorceries here. We also don't have to buff or ramp up our damage first, so this is super chill to play, pun intended. For our ranged option I'm using the Ice Spear Ash of War. This is a very hard-hitting, medium-ranged ability with very good posture damage. It also applies Frostbite within a few casts during boss fights, which eats away a decent amount of the enemy's health when it procs, plus giving you 20% increased damage against the target for 30 seconds. The damage of this Ash of War is independent from your weapon damage. It scales with weapon level, talismans and your stats. So I choose the Claimant's Harpoon here for a lighter equip load, more on that later, if I only plan to use the Ash of War. Or I take the Cross Naginata for higher weapon damage if I also use the weapon itself in melee range. The latter has also natural bleed build up, and despite the harpoon having initial magic damage that profits from intelligence, the Naginata hits harder overall, but also weighs more. It also has a much better moveset than the Claimant's Harpoon. Both weapons enable you to block and poke if you choose to combine it with a medium shield, for example. Ice Spear is very FP efficient and you can totally destroy big enemies and bosses just by spamming it if you want to do that. Or just quickly swap weapons and place one or two hard hits while evading close range attacks. Most regular enemies on the landscape die during one or two hits. But spamming it alone gets boring and I like to be versatile during a playthrough and switch my playstyle on the fly. With the Naginata as a strong katana with exceptional reach and native bleed build up, we can instantly switch to melee combat. You can really use any fitting Ash of War you like and set it to the code affinity. My personal favorites are Sword Dance, which is extremely cheap, hits hard and applies Frostbite fast, or Chilling Mist to lean even more into the Frost theme. The latter also buffing your weapon for 40 seconds, but really, if you get bored of a specific Ash of War, just switch it up to your liking. You can start this build pretty early in the game, but it is quite stat hungry, so it really shines in the endgame or as a new game plus build. But the Ash of Wars I just described and the related weapons are all found very early in the game, so you can totally beeline these at the beginning and build around them. Around level 140 to 150 you can have nearly maxed out your damage stats at the soft caps, while also having enough endurance to rock an armor with 51 poise, thus giving you the ability to tank through light hits and also having a flex spot for a third weapon or a shield. In this case I use the Ronin chest and hand armor, which is one of my favorite overall sets in the game, and some different pieces in the head and leg slot. But you can really choose everything as long as you keep medium rolling and achieve 51 poise. What makes this build exceptional flexible beyond your already existing flexibility in weapon and Ash of War choice is before mentioned flex spot. You see, with 21 endurance I have around 6.5 kg of additional weight I can put on. Want to go with a banished shield for extra blocking ability and put in some guard counters? Check. Want a third weapon as backup and more variety? You can totally use the extremely strong Moon Whale or Wing of Estelle for just that, or change the melee weapon for a heavier option like the Zaymor Curved Sword with the recently buffed Zaymor Ice Storm as a devastating close range Ash of War and a very cool weapon moveset. You see, it gives you plenty of options. If you want, you could also use a staff and spells in your offhand or as a third weapon slot, or the hornbow that comes with intelligence scaling. You can adapt to your enemies and spice up your playstyle to not be locked in a repetitive setup for the duration of your playthrough easily. Stats at level 150 are as follows: 40 vigor, which is enough for me at the end of a first playthrough and the start of New Game Plus, but you can also set it to 50 with some compromises in mind, dexterity and intelligence. And the further you progress into New Game Plus, you want to reach at least 50 later on. Mind is at 25, thus giving us plenty of FP for this build. 21 or 22 would also be possible if you want to save some points here. Strength is only here to meet weapon requirements, and dexterity and intelligence are targeting 55 and 50 for the soft caps, but will also add further damage the more you progress into NG Plus and beyond. Talismans are Shard of Alexander to boost your Ash of War damage, the Magic Scorpion Talisman to further increase magic damage, and the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman for further protection and to offset the 10% physical damage increase of the Magic Scorpion Charm. For the last slot I usually use the Ritual Sword Talisman, but depending on the situation you could also use Millicent's Prothesis if you don't feel you can maintain 100% health enough. Or some defense talismans for certain bosses, like additional holy resistance against the Elden beast for example. The Flask of Wondrous Physics contains the Magic Shrouding Crack tier to boost magic damage and a secondary slot for either increased resistance or a stat boost for more damage. Overall, this build utilizes frostbite and magic damage, while also be able to deal decent physical damage in melee range. You can favor an Ash of War oriented gameplay or lean heavier into the weapon movesets themselves. You can also add a medium shield or an additional third weapon for even more variety and flexibility. Moonveil, Wing of Estelle and Death Ritual Spear are very strong options here. You could also combine Ice Spear with the Zaymor Curved Sword and the Dark Moon Greatsword. Again, spicing up your variety and being extremely strong options by themselves. Personally, I found this to be one of the most fun builds I have ever played with. What do you think about this build and what build themes you would like to see covered in the future? Let me know down below in the comments. That's all for now about Elden Ring. Take good care of yourself and enjoy your gaming sessions.